welcome to a reassuringly expensive version of the wine show at home. We don't do this all the time, but every so often it's nice to splash out a bit, and I couldn't really resist bunging my nose in there. Hello. I'm going to get stuck straight in because we've got James Hocking Wines. JamesHockingWine.com is the web address. Go and have a visit. James is lovely. Here he is. He's a chump. Now, James is specialised in California wines. He is the leading importer of California wines into the UK, and he knows all the producers really well, and he brings them across, and there are things that you don't find anywhere else. But he's also delivering something very special during our current time of coronavirus crisis. So I'll tell you about that in a second. I'm going to start with the wine though, because today should be about the wines. It shouldn't be about me larking about. What have we got here? Benovia Chardonnay. This is really good. Okay, brace yourself. This is £47.46. There are going to be some really happy doctors and nurses trying this, and care workers. I've got various people lined up to go and have a try. What vintage are you on here? 2017. Oh, having a good sniff of this. California Chardonnay, you may have a perception that it is very big and fat and rich and juicy, and you can find them. But the extraordinary thing about California is it's very diverse. Even, here we're talking about being in Sonoma and the Russian River Valley and in the Napa Valley, which are all quite close together, but there are huge differences. And some of you will have seen that film Sideways, where he talks a bit about how you've got the cold ocean here, and the heat rises inland in the United States, and it sucks in this cold air. Well, when you get to places like the Russian River Valley, it sucks it in really easily, because a lot of California is like this. It's lots and lots of ridges, and mountains, and it sucks it through the gaps. This is one of them. Go to the Alexander Valley, not far away, totally different wines, bigger, fatter, richer. This has sort of what we call this. It is a kind of lemon custard. When I say custard, don't expect, this is a bit vanilla-y, but it's got this tang to it because of all this cold air that comes in. You know, there's fogs that you see coming in on California. There's melon, apple, lots of fresh, zingy, zesty, not quite tart acidity, but it's vibrant. It's got a shimmer about it. Now, these are expensive wines, and a lot of people are going to ask me, well, are they really worth it? There are lots of ways of going and judging it, but one of the things you can tell is these are wines that have huge complexity. I can think of it tastes of a lot of things, and it sits on my palate for a very long time. So it's got this great length that sits there. And when you think about what does it taste like, it's not just citrusy. It is a sort of lemon custard. It's something very specific. You could almost even name the lemons. In America, people often talk about Meyer lemon. I don't know if I could tell you a Meyer lemon, but I could tell you the difference between a bergamot lemon and a regular lemon. And although it's very zesty, it's got lots of fruit, so it's all in balance. And it's known as the BLIC, this thing, balance, length, intensity, complexity. Really good wines have exceptional balance, really great long length. I can still taste it now. They are very intense in the characteristics of the fruit that they're describing. It's exactly that. And they're hugely complex. There's hazelnut. Somebody asked me the other day about hazelnut. Hazelnut is usually the sort of sign of really good oak. And this has that hazelnut character. It's gorgeous wine. Now, would I have this every day? Probably not, because it's big and it's expansive and it's pretty intense. I probably would have. No, you wouldn't have it every day because it's quite a challenging wine just to sort of drink on its own. You want to have a meal with it, a bit of turbot, something like that. But it's a super duper special, very nice, smart wine when you want to have a bit of a celebration. And it'll last much longer as well. California's had its challenges. I know Benovia, they had some issues around fires, sort of bushfires, a couple of years ago. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the winery. This is named after, we've got here, Mary Duane and Joe Anderson. They named it in honour of their fathers, who never met. And their fathers were Ben Duane and Novian Anderson. Ben Novia. So Ben Duane, Novia and Anderson. And they were both brought up to work very hard, and they said, we want to go and create a winery that represents the hard work our fathers taught us. And it's really good. Now, James has this brilliant thing during lockdown. So if you go and order a case of wine, particularly if you're around and about in in South Hampshire, he has this side, well, it's a hobby, growing show vegetables. But there are no shows to take his vegetables, so he's going out, and for people, he's got an abundance of plants looking for good homes. Customers in South Hampshire can request Sun Gold cherry tomatoes; those sound delicious. San Marzano tomatoes, I love those. Marconi sweet peppers and Apache bastard hot chilies. You'll also get a small bottle of Hocking's tomato feed, a secret formula created by James and responsible for many a best-in show. So get yourself a case. He's got a really good lockdown California value case. It's really good. Go and have a look on his website on jameshockingwine.com, and it's a brilliant mixed case of interesting wines, which includes, I think, I'm pretty right in saying this next wine, which is Oak Farm Zinfandel. The vintage on this, again, is 2017. And this is from the Lodi Valley. As in the song, "Oh Lord, stuck in Lodi again." Anybody remember that? In fairness, I don't really remember it because it was in 1969. But it was Creedence Clearwater Revival made Lodi quite famous with that song. And then, bizarre connection with wine in the Napa Valley, Creedence Clearwater Revival did Susie Q, and there is a very famous scene in Apocalypse Now where the helicopters bring Playboy girls for all the soldiers, and they play Susie Q, famous song. That was filmed at Black Stallion Winery in the Napa Valley because Apocalypse Now had such an appalling bad luck, and they had to go and film it back in. And I think Francis Ford Coppola knew the guy who owned the winery, so they filmed it there. I'm pretty certain that's right. Yeah, I know that's right. There you go. This is not from the Napa Valley. So this is from Lodi, which is around, but it's further north and it's warmer. It's famous for being very warm up there. And it's big and bold and rich. Now, you will go and get cooler climates, like Dry Creek Valley. You get a sort of cooler climate, slightly zingier style of Zinfandel. But really, the home of Zin is Lodi. And it's that damson fruit, eucalyptus, there's concentrated sort of fruit coulis, black fruit coulis, lots of dark black fruits. It's not as expensive, £23.35. It's still got a zingy freshness to it. Remember I said about that balance thing? Although it's really concentrated and rich, sweet fruit, it's got to be balanced by the acidity, by that zing. And it's really delicious. Brilliant barbecue wine, this. Now, they have a festival. They've got two festivals. Tragically, one of them is meant to be next week, actually, which is Zinfest. And it's a big festival they've had for years, all about celebrating Zinfandel, which we know, if you've been watching regularly, is also Primitivo from southern Italy, and Kraljenak from Croatia, and assorted other grape varieties. And it was mislabeled when it came into the United States. Because they thought it was a totally different grape variety called Zinfandel, I think it was. So they have this festival, the Zin Festival, which is in the first week in May, and it will be cancelled this year, tragically. There is also a festival they have there, and it's the Wine and Chocolate Festival, because some people do reckon that goes very well with chocolate. I don't get it myself, but it is a bit like, when you have cherry dipped in chocolate, with liqueurs. It's a bit sort of liqueurish and cherry liqueur. It's like sort of maraschino, but I kind of get it. It's very low tannin, actually. That's a problem with, for a red, it's got quite low tannin. And chocolate itself has a sort of tannin to it, so you end up with a rather jarring tannin. And it's sweet enough, that sweet fruit, although it's not sugary. It's got that sweetness. There we go. Right, Moone-Tsai Cabernet Sauvignon. I'm not keeping this. I already know who I'm giving this to. I'm giving this to Dr. Cat. She's going to go and try this. Moone-Tsai Cabernet Sauvignon. This is £91.89. I wish we had smell-o-vision, because you'd really enjoy it. It's about pure, precise, linear, clean, very intense blackcurrant Cabernet character. It does actually have a bit of Merlot in it, which when you have a try, it would be almost too much. It would be too foursquare and boxy. And what happens is the Merlot just gives it a bit of plumpness. It rounds it out as it does in Bordeaux. This is so not like Bordeaux. This will live for a very long time. Again, 17 vintage, so it's got bags of time ahead of it. But there's lots of cranberry fruit in there and a sort of cedary spice, tobacco. But that sort of holds back. You can feel the wood, the tannin, more than you can go and taste it. Now, it comes from Coombsville. Coombsville, you sort of don't notice it. So you got the Napa Valley, but the Napa Valley is made up of Howell Mountain and Mount Vida and all these little bits. Coombsville is a well-established part of the Napa Valley, but most people kind of just scoot straight past it because it's down in the sort of southeast of the valley. It's relatively cool, and it's coming into its own because now we're liking Cabernets like this, which have a bit more briskness, and they've got a bit more lift. A lot of top flight Cabernets like this were bigger and woollier and a bit wallowing in the past for the British palate. This is a great value wine. He said, it's so value. Great value wine, nice £2. No, it was great. It is great value wine because actually you can pay a lot of money for California Cab. This for under £100, $100 is about as good as it's going to get. It's one of the best value under $100 Cabernets in California. And there are people out there, I know you. In fact, one of you went and sent me a WhatsApp yesterday who loves this sort of wine, and you buy it, and you should go. In fact, I'm going to send you a WhatsApp later and tell you to get some of this for your dinner parties, which I'm hoping I get to come to a bit later on. It really is a great sub-appellation, that. I might enjoy those whilst I answer a few questions. Paul from Ontario, Canada. I've been through Ontario in Canada, and I remember two things. One is that a quarter of the world's fresh water is in Ontario, Canada. I seem to remember. The other is that it's in law, you can apologise to somebody after an accident in Canada, and that doesn't mean you're admitting guilt. Whereas in lots of countries, it's seen as an admission of guilt. Anyway, on to your question. Hello, Joe. Mr. Fattorini. It's just Joe. Seriously. I don't count for that. You come from Ontario, Canada, and you live in the southern part near Niagara Falls. It's an important area. Now, you've tried Rosewood Estates Winery, but their focus was on mead, where they have their own bees and honey from some of their products. Can I research the winery and find it as interesting as you have? Yes, and in fact, I've got some mead coming up in an episode, I don't know, in sort of week or so. We've got some English mead that's coming through. Interesting thing, my son made mead one year. Also, you've got terracotta amphoras for Cabernet Franc. That would be interesting. I quite like wine in amphora. Who lived in an amphora in a big wine vessel? It's Diogenes. Diogenes the dog. Diogenes the cynic. And yeah, he lived in a wine amphora. He also did something unspeakable in public, in the market. And afterwards, when he was questioned about it, he said, well, if only I could satisfy my hunger by rubbing my tummy in the same way. I'm not going to tell you, but look it up. It's slightly not safe for work, actually, that. But it's very important in the history of philosophy. Sandra Gelso. Hello, Joe. The wine you're drinking is a Georgian wine, a Chateaumoufrani Rkatsiteli Superior. I've had it, Chateaumoufrani, and I've had lots of Rkatsiteli. I do know Rkatsiteli means red-horned or sort of red-stemmed. If you look at the bunches, the wood goes a very characteristic red colour, and it was probably the world's most widely planted grape variety until it was the sort of glasnost reforms of Gorbachev, and he uprooted lots of it. They had a sort of enforced root ball program. It sort of can be very boring and very acidic if you get it in the wrong way. Peter Ring from Melbourne, Australia. Apparently we're helping you in these trying times. That's great. You grew up in Ararat, not far from Great Western, in the Grampians wine region, Victoria. Your favourite wine there is from Best's, fabulous maker of Aussie Shiraz. Not just Aussie Shiraz, because you asked if I've tried them. Their old vine Pinot Meunier is exceptional, and I had the joy of selling it a few years ago. There are two. There's a really old vine from some grandfathers. I think they still make it, and then a younger vine, Pinot Meunier. But I love those wines. They're absolutely glorious. Melissa Ann, most of the rosés I've tried have been way too sweet. Can you recommend a dry one? There are actually two that are called bone dry rosé. One's from Australia and one's from Germany, I think. They're actually called bone dry rosé. For people like you, Melissa Ann, that's what you've got in mind. But look out, Pinot Noir is rarely anything other than bone dry. An Italian Sangiovese Rosato is usually pretty dry as well. So those are worth looking out for. Janie and Michael Stubbs. Question for Joe. Don't think anyone else will answer it, Janie, honestly. It's been a respite from the Groundhog Days. I know, we all. Now you've been using the merchants featured on the show, and your taste buds have been awakened to fab wines, and sometimes the odd headache the following day. I take no responsibility for your headaches, Janie and Michael. What's my favourite tipple in Spain? And have I done the elephant crawl in Logroño, Calle Laurel? I did, but we arrived sort of too late, so I didn't end up like an elephant, because it's called the elephant crawl because people lumber like elephants because they've eaten so much food. So I have been down Calle Laurel. My favourite wine from Spain, Ribera Sacra. There are various people producing wines in Ribera Sacra. These new, interesting, vibrant, often things like Mencia up in the north, Bierzo. Absolutely love Mencia. Look out for Mencia or Bierzo. Brilliant wines. And finally, a shout out, not finally, because I've got another one after here. A shout out, this is from you, from Janie and Michael. Finally, a shout out to another fan of ours, the winery by Lanneberg in the northeast. I looked at them up not long ago because we were looking for UK wineries, and Elise Lane and her family, I think we've possibly even got a photograph of her here because I sort of digged this out earlier on, have set up this extraordinary urban winery in Gateshead, which I know. I used to sell wine in Gateshead. I never knew anyone was making wine up there. Elise Lane and the family, get in touch. We'll go and plug your wines on here. We'd love to go and try them. Give us a shout. It'd be fascinating. Wines from Gateshead. There you go. Nils Melbin in Sweden. Oh, I do. Vi kommer till Sverige så snart efter lockdownen. Is that how you were going to say it? Anyway, I don't really speak very good Swedish at all, but my wife speaks it fluently. I want to buy a really nice Waiter's Friend cork opener. I want it to be slim and very easy to use. Do you have any recommendations? Any brands I should look up? Well, you get all sort of standard ones, but there is one. Code 34. Have a look here. These are Code 34 corkscrews. Roughly, these ones sort of started around £350 for a corkscrew, but they're milled. And the top one, the Stealth Titanium, is about £1,000 for a corkscrew. I don't have one, I'd lose it. And it talks about it really technically, about the chassis and things like that. So that's what you want to go and get if you get really smart. Non-serrated foil. So you get sort of smooth cut. I know the guys at £67 Mall use Code 38. They are very beautiful. But I'd sort of go and lose it. And Richard Norton. You enjoyed the channel, but every wine I taste is delicious. I know you're being sent by bottles by merchants. Not really sponsors, they're just merchants. They don't sponsor it. But there must be wines not to my taste. You know what? There's two ways of thinking about it. Do I like it or is it good? And I try to judge things on the basis of whether I think it's good, which is it balanced? Does it have great length for the money? Is it intense and is it complex? And that is a good wine, relative price points. Are there wines that I don't really go for? Yeah, there are sometimes. Some of the whites I sort of struggle with a little bit. There are sometimes some of the natural wines, I know people absolutely love them. There are bits about those that I find a little bit challenging. Although, they work in that sort of context. Wines with too much sweetness. There was a Zinfandel. Remember the 60 Anniversario 62, 42? It's very sweet and big and alcoholic, and I struggled with that. But you know what? In its class, Blick is pretty good. Look, I hope you've enjoyed it. Go to jameshockingwine.com and buy some really smart California wines. Come back and see us on Wednesday, and you stay safe. That's what I'm meant to say these days, isn't it? Stay safe. Stay safe. Bye-bye for now. I'm going to drink some of these.